Speaker.
I call the Honourable Hekia Parata.
Talofa lava, Mr. Speaker, tēnā koe otira kia tātou katoa. I do join a very proud lineup on this side of the House in standing to speak on this budget. It is a fine budget. It is a balanced budget. It's a budget that is responsive to the times that we find ourselves in, and it's one that is as fair as it is possible to be to all sectors of our society. It reflects the very deep aspirations and ambitions that our Prime Minister John Key has consistently led this government with since we came to government at the end of 2008. His commitment to those most vulnerable is reflected in this budget, as well as his very sharp appreciation, unlike the opposition, that money does not pour from a pipeline in the sky, but actually comes from hard-working New Zealanders up and down the country. And this budget reflects a recognition of that by both investing in the immediate term through the reduction in ACC levies, while also looking to the middle and long-term future of our country by investing in regional science foundations. This budget delivers on the commitment the Prime Minister made during the election last year that we would do our very best to lift up those who need the support the most and to do it in a way that's as fair as possible to all New Zealanders. And that is why we see the $790 million package at the heart of this budget, which, as we go out further into the detail of the budget, we see just how caring and sensible and practical the policies and the funding initiatives in this budget are for families, for hard-working families, both for those who find themselves in circumstances where for a while they are dependent on benefit support from the government, as well as those families who are on low-wage incomes. And this budget reflects another principle that is resonant of a national government, while also expecting reciprocal obligations, because that is the nature of our national character, and that is to ensure that we do help those who need help the most, but we also do it in a way that doesn't induce the disease of dependency which the opposition is so proud of. This government has, after 43 years, been the first government to make a real contribution to lifting benefit incomes, but it's done it understanding that nevertheless we believe absolutely in the virtue and value of work, and so there are incentives and requirements within this provision to these families. Approximately 110,000 families are estimated to benefit by an extra $25 a week through this new package. That accounts for approximately 190,000 children. We're unable to give the specific detail of that because, of course, New Zealand families, whānau and ainga, come in all shapes and sizes, and it will be the particulars of their circumstances that will determine in the end the level of extra support that this budget holds out for them. But how is it that we are able to provide this support? It has been through very prudent management of our economy in the very stable, conservative and sensible hands of our Minister of Finance, the Honourable Bill English. And we have come from deep recession to a very solid 3% growth. That results in more jobs. We expect 150,000 more jobs. We expect to see the average wage go up by $7,000. And at the same time, we have an inflation rate of 0.1%. So we expect that interest rates will remain relatively low. Now, all of these make a difference to hard-working New Zealand families. They get the value from this, and we continue to place emphasis on what their needs are. Families like my own from heartland East Coast Ngāti Porou, Ruatoria, will benefit in the same way as families from Porirua and Paraparaumu. And of course, we've heard already this afternoon about Gore and Dunstan and all of these heartland towns that, like a string of pearls, make up the beauty of who this country is in all of its colourful diversity. Our government is absolutely committed to reflecting and representing that diversity, but to do so in a meaningful way, to ensure that those families can earn a decent income, that they can have, as a result of this budget, for instance, a 20% increase in the child care allowance for up to 50 hours a week. That's both at early childhood levels and for the out-of-school care provision. That means that while we are supporting families, we're also encouraging them to get back taken to work, and to do so we are being realistic about what that takes and providing childcare support. In my own vote for which I am responsible, Vote Education, we've seen a significant increase again in the 7th budget of this government, because as I have said many times in this House, this government understands the critical contribution that a good quality education makes to all young New Zealanders. It is a passport to a better future. It does give better options to those people. It doesn't mean we all make better choices, but we certainly have more options available. This government understands that those choices should be ones made by individuals and by families. We don't prescribe what they should do. We invest in creating an environment where those choices and opportunities are available to people. And this budget reflects that. We have a plan, Mr. Speaker, that is working. It is one that we have continued to grow incrementally from the end of 2008 to where we find ourselves now in May of 2015. Yes, there is still more work to do, but it's based on a very solid foundation. Let me turn particularly to families, because of course this budget speaks very directly to families and to the specific contributions that we're making to support them. This budget carries on a number of investments, not least of which is the more paid parental leave that we have getting underway this year. It recognises that families do want to be at home in the first months of their babies, having their babies and ensuring that they're well brought up. That's supported by free GP visits up to age 13. That's reflected in the Home Start grants for first home buyers, and I'm looking forward to holding one of these evenings in Porirua in the next couple of weeks. I wish I could remember the date. Perhaps someone in my office who's watching will helpfully text me that date, so that first home buyers in Porirua will seize the opportunity that this government is providing to them of becoming first home buyers in the fabulous Mana electorate, which stretches from Tawa in the south to Paraparaumu in the north. We've had record child immunisation. When we came into government, Mr. Speaker, there was little, as much less investment, despite the opposition speaker on health, in health. A lot of talk. The opposition is very good at a lot of talk, but it had to wait until this government came into power to see actual investment targeting going into those families that need them the most. Māori and Pacifica immunisation has gone up from about 60% to over 90%. That means healthier babies. We've got warmer, drier, healthier homes. We have breakfasts in schools, much to the chagrin of the opposition, who want to legislate rather than just accept. Right now, every school in New Zealand who wishes to run a breakfast program can, courtesy of the support of Sanitarium and Fonterra. We have better education for children. We have more kids starting earlier, staying longer and leaving better qualified, more jobs and higher incomes, helping children living in hardship, as I've covered, and more money in the pockets of hard-working New Zealanders. My colleagues have already covered a range of investment areas, so I'm going to, for the last 2 minutes, focus specifically on the new funding in Vote Education. Now, we already, out of that 10.8 billion, which I have said is a shipload of money, and thanks to the taxpayers of New Zealand who continue to contribute their taxes and support this level of investment into education. $10.8 billion. Now, $10.8 billion in education. 1.6 billion of that is early childhood education, which is more than police get in New Zealand. And we want that to be the case. We want money to be going into the productive side of our citizenship balance sheet, if you like. But we've added to the special ed provision, which currently sits at just over $530 million. In this budget, we've put another $69 million into special ed. About $32 million of that is to expand the OARS scheme, and the remainder is to ensure that there are extra teacher aid hours in schools. But there are 3 new initiatives, she said, holding up 4 fingers just to test if anyone in the opposition opposition was actually taking any notice. But no, you know why, Mr. Speaker? It's because this is good news, and the opposition thrive on being miserable and mean. For the weeks and months leading up to this budget, there were all these commands that this government must make sure that in this budget it attended to those families in deep hardship, that it focused on the children most vulnerable and in the poorest of circumstances. And when this budget delivered exactly that, they were gobsmacked for about 5 minutes and then defaulted to their usual miserable, carping, unhappy, depressing approach to life. Isn't it great that for New Zealand, Mr. Speaker, that we continue after 7 years to have as high aspirations, as full ambitions as we started with for each and every New Zealander, and what this budget delicately, finely, profoundly, beautifully, elegantly put together demonstrates that we also have the funding and investment to deliver on the platforms of those aspirations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.